All right, so why don't we kick it off by having our panelists do introductions? We could do this popcorn style. I'm gonna pick Victor. Victor, name, where you're from, immersive you took.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Chris. Really excited to be here, and thanks to everyone for joining. My name is Victor. I'm located in Russia, right? Originally Nigerian. I took the immersive. I was Recre 59, so that's West Coast, remote immersive. So I graduated that last September, and right now I'm a software developer at a agency based in the UK. So we basically work on like a diverse range of like enterprise products, right? And now one thing we're working on recently is cross hybrid apps for an e-commerce platform. And so what we are currently doing is so it's not an app. They just basically put the website inside of React Native and upload it to the Google Store and App Store. So that makes the app work on your mobile phone without needing to go to, the original website. So that's pretty fun. I guess that's it. Then I'll popcorn to Jeffrey.
Good evening, good night. My name is Jeffrey Richardson. I attended C-Tree 12, graduated last January. I'm a senior software engineer at Humana as of May of 2023. Currently, we're working on a tool to better manage Humana's data traffic and how its microservices communicate. Humana is obviously a fairly large insurance company. On nursing homes, hospitals, pharmacies. So first half of this project, they allocated like 45 mil. So it's going to be like a 18-month endeavor. And then we'll switch to phase two, which is, I think they're allocating like 30 million to that. So a lot of work to do, but excited to be here and talking to y'all about my journey. And I'm a popcorn to Eden.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Hey, everyone. My name is Eden. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I was a part of C3 10, so I was two cohorts before Jeffrey. I'm a software engineer currently at the New York Times, coming up on 6 months. I work across various applications there. My favorite part is probably interacting with the different teams, figuring out how do we serve these millions of users who come to the site.
Cool. And Sigele.
Hi everyone. I'm Sigele. I'm based out of Dallas. I was in Petrie 6, which means I graduated, I would say it was fall of 2022. And then after that I was a fellow for I think one cycle after that. Um, I'm a software engineer at G Research. G Research is a quantitative financial research firm. It's based out of the UK. Because it involves finance and trading and stuff like that, I can't really say any more than that. And so I'm done. Yeah, and so I'll give it back to Chris.
Cool. Cool. Lovely to meet all of our great panelists. My name is Chris Akinrinade. I am your moderator for this evening. I am also a Codesmith grad, based out of New Jersey, Richfield Park, New Jersey. The immersive that I was in was New York 22, so they didn't have like the on-site then. That was pandemic years. But we finished in January of 2021, I believe. And I am currently a career support engineer here at Codesmith, helping my fellow Codesmith grads with their data structures and algorithms, preparing for interviews and stuff like that at any point in their post Codesmith lifetime. And I'm also a software engineer at Square, doing back-end work on their refunds API team. So without further ado, let's get into the meat of our discussion. This question is going to apply to everyone. So anyone can jump in. But basically, what I want to know is, what were you doing before Codesmith?
I'll jump in. Before Codesmith, I was a math and science teacher. And Sigele, I hope you don't mind if I popcorn it to you now.
I'll accept it. Before Codesmith, so God, how far back do I want to go? Before Codesmith, I was actually looking for jobs as a apparel pattern maker in the New York area, actually. And then lockdown started, and they started in New York. So I was like, oh crap. So I started, like, I don't know, just kind of exploring other career avenues, other things that I was interested in. And before that, I was an intern at a cowboy hat factory. So, and I will popcorn it to Victor.
Yeah, thank you. So before Codesmith, I was actually a web designer. So I was like into tech. I had already spent like, I think, 2.5 years in tech, like basically building website and things like that. And before that, I was like a UI UX designer. So like I've always been in tech pretty much. So Codesmith was just, taking me to the next level, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm a popcorn to Jeffrey.
Yeah, before Codesmith, I actually was a travel ICU nurse for like 11, 12 years. Kind of in tandem with that, like with flip houses, and had some rental property. So come from a predominantly healthcare background.
Nursing, teaching, we've got the whole gamut of things here. Software engineering or web designing, like we've got a lot of backgrounds here. So it just goes to show that you could come from anywhere, jump into Codesmith, learn what you have to learn, and break into the industry. So for this next question, this also applies to anyone, and we don't have to get everyone for this question, but I'll let you guys jump in with what you feel is what you feel you have to add. But basically, Black people are often like underrepresented in the tech industry. Like this has been a long-standing thing, and we want to know how all of you got introduced to software engineering, and like what made you decide to get into this industry and into this immersive. Like how were you as a Black person introduced to the tech industry?
I'll start this one off. So for me personally, kind of during COVID, my younger sister actually was attending Codesmith. Once she graduated, her first job out of Codesmith was with Microsoft, and she just kept talking about how much she like enjoyed the work she was doing. She was able to travel. She enjoyed like literally everything day to day. So just kind of really got tired of her bragging every time she came over. Kind of looked into it and just made my mind up I was gonna pursue it after. Obviously, kind of looking into the tech industry, watching some YouTube videos, attending like some of the Codesmith hard parts lectures as well.
I just realized I know your sister. We definitely did the program at the same time. Awesome.
Going off of that, Jeffrey's sister actually did a similar panel to this, and that actually triggered me joining Codesmith and wanting to do the immersive, which is really cool. Initially, before that though, I taught underrepresented students computer science fundamentals. And as I was learning to teach them more about these things, I realized how the barrier to entry wasn't that crazy. It was reasonable. And that kind of brought me into engineering.
I'll go. So I'm here because of Brandy Richardson. No, I'm kidding. I've never met her. So like I said before, I was doing like apparel production stuff, and in the context of doing that studying, I found that I didn't really want to do it for a job, but the computer design aspects and all of the more technical stuff was more interesting to me. So during lockdown, when I had nothing to do, I just started trying to basically teach myself stuff just from resources I found online. I had like a whole like binder of like Java notes. And so at a certain point, I felt like I needed some sort of outside guidance. So I made like a spreadsheet of like all the different coding programs that were out there to try and find, in my mind, the one that seemed the most reputable. And Codesmith obviously had a very high barrier to entry. It was hard, but I kind of liked that. I liked the challenging aspect of it. I liked that it wasn't just, you know, give us your money and come on in. There was a bit of a challenge, a hurdle to get over. And that was it.
Mm. Victor, anything to add before we move on? Cool. All right. So we're looking for some pros and cons. Maybe not pros and cons, pros and challenges. We like hard learning. So what is like a highlight, just like a really positive experience that stood out from your time during the immersive? And name a time or another experience during the immersive that really challenged you and like stretched you to your limits. This time I'm actually gonna pick on Victor for this one.
Yeah, I can start this one off. So I think every day in the immersive was a challenge for me. Like I wouldn't say a day was less challenging because why? Because of the time. So I'm based in Russia, which is like I don't know how many hours that is. So my immersive, and I did the full-time immersive. So you can imagine my classes were from 6 p.m. in the evening till 6 a.m. midnight, like morning, like from midnight morning. So like I had to change my entire routine for like 2 months even before Codesmith. So I had to like make sure I was awake throughout the night and then try and sleep like in the morning, stroke afternoon, and then try to stay awake throughout the day. So like staying awake throughout the entire immersive was like the most challenging thing. And yeah, I got through it. I don't think I missed like any classes, that kind of thing. And I had friends and then the community as well. You have your cohort mates that will be like, any time a new teacher comes out, they be like, yo, Victor is here and he's joining at 2 a.m. So no one has an excuse to like miss the class or any kind of thing like that. So that was really also like one of the good things that came out of Cosmo, which is like the community that comes with it, everyone supporting you, and then everyone knowing, you have this sort of time schedule and then, trying to keep you off your feet. So yeah, pretty much.
Wow. All right. Jeffrey, name a time at Codesmith that was tougher than whatever Victor went through. No pressure.
Definitely Victor's gonna have me beat across the board. I mean, I would say for me, kind of like to Victor's point, but for different reasons. Codesmith was extremely challenging for me. It was at least for me, I recall it might have even been Eaton at the end of the first half. Like I think I went to him and I was like, man, like I suck. Like I don't suck at nothing, but I suck. And for me, it was like a real low point, but just kind of being transparent. Like it was cool seeing someone look like me teach a class. So I remember reaching out to him, and he actually, took the time out of his busy schedule and actually kind of like talk with me, help me go through some stuff on like a Saturday morning. I'll never forget because I just remember, how stressed I was and like it just felt so good to have someone who had already been where I was at that I could relate to and kind of like offer like, hey man, like I was there, which at the time was like, nah, man, like it's 32 people in my cohort. I'm ranked number 36. Like I'm horrible. So, I really appreciate Eaton for that. And, I honestly say Codesmith, I probably stress more throughout the program than I do on my job, like pretty much all the time. But that's just my experience.
Okay, let's get some highlights. You could still talk about challenges too, or maybe they're one and the same. Jeffrey mentioned Eden, so we could go to you next.
Wow, challenges. I was just gonna go with like the normal, just the daily challenges in terms of like learning the different technologies. But I think that overall, at Codesmith, I think it's really about like the challenge of just going through each day and having those full days and waking up that next day and saying, yo, I'm going to continue doing this. I think that was a big challenge for me. Like waking up and saying, wow, I'm really doing this and I don't know where this is going to land tomorrow. Not knowing what the future holds. And I think that's what gave me the ability to even help out Jeffrey when he reached out. Because I related so deeply. Yeah, I would say that was like the biggest challenge is the unknown factor.
Absolutely. There's a lot of not knowing that goes on at Codesmith. And doesn't stop there. The industry is just full of people who don't know what they're doing and who figure it out day by day. So there you go. Sigele, anything to add from your experience? Highlights, lowlights?
I mean, I think generally I had the same experience of some people where it's sort of, can get it in it's very easy to get into your head that you're not cut out for it, especially when you're learning something new. It's not necessarily the lowest point, but there was a time where I was pair programming with someone on a unit and they were just very obviously above me level wise, but also their, how should I put it? Technical communication was sort of spotty, so I felt like a little bit left behind, and that didn't necessarily, they weren't necessarily looking down on me. They weren't necessarily doing it on purpose. But, there's a reason that Codesmith considers being able to communicate through code and pair well together valuable. It's because one experience like that can make it really easy to convince yourself, like, I'm not smart enough to do this. In terms of, I guess I can also just like say something positive because I feel like we've been a lot of doom and gloom recently, but I'll say the time that I was in Petrie, we do our shout outs every so often, and the shout outs sometimes would go on for like an hour and a half of people continually being thankful for each other and people and like crying and saying, I feel like you guys are my best friends. So it was very, it was very heartwarming. Yeah.
Excellent. So lots of hard learning. Definitely sounds like it was worth it. Personally, in my time at Codesmith, the first time I built something that worked was pretty satisfying. And there's just something special about like, oh, wow, like this actually works. I understand it. That can really make your day. So, Sigele, you mentioned technical communication a second ago. I want to loop back to that. What technical and like soft skills do you think are essential for the role that you have now? And like how did Codesmith help solidify or build those soft skills as you went through the program?
Oh, okay. So because my role is sort of DevOps, there's a lot of just CI/CD I do day to day. One thing that has been very important is more than just understanding how to make code do what you want it to do. It's learning how to make code do what you want it to do with the right amount of resources fast enough. Because we're constantly thinking about, load and binaries and traffic and how much our systems can take in terms of transferring information. And so that stuff is, and I think that's sort of, one of those things that's like a cut above, just like I was trying to do, just teaching yourself to write code, is that you can't always fully experience that until you're working in a big system with a big distributed tech stack. But also, I think very early on, even in like CSX, you're learning how to do things like throttle, to make sure that you're not sending too many requests within a given time. Stuff like that. Just thinking about not just what your code is doing, but how it's doing it, and if you could make it more efficient.
Excellent. Can I get one other person to talk about some of the skills that Codesmith helped them learn or bring to their careers, particularly like soft skills?
I would say communication. Communication was a big part of the whole immersive. You were required to constantly speak to other engineers that were in your cohort. And you would be forced to be out of your comfort zone when speaking to them, because you might not know that day about the technology. That might not be the technology that you're great at. Maybe one day you're great at that technology and you have to be able to technically communicate it to them to your best ability. But it's also having the ability to say it without being arrogant, or say it while still being confident. Hey, I don't know. I think that was a really big thing that I got, which was communication.
Excellent. Yeah, communication is critical. And in a lot of ways that you wouldn't think that it's important. Things could slide through the cracks, and projects can go in the wrong direction for months because of miscommunication.
That reminds me, sorry to jump in again,
Please
but
do.
I'm in a hybrid role, and obviously my company is a UK company, so literally half of the team is in the UK. You are getting like 25% of the information a person wants to communicate over Slack. And it's very, very, very easy to misinterpret things. And also, normal, just people don't read. So again, communication is incredibly important.
Yep. Cool. So I'll let anybody answer this one. What does diversity, equity, and inclusion look like at your company? Like, do you work with any other Black engineers? How has the experience been for you, if you do, or even if you don't?
So I'll say on my team, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 of us, and then the manager. I'm the only Black person on the team. I'm the only non-male on the team, but in the larger company, there's a sizable number of Black engineers, and also people of color in general. I would say, and I have had conversations with female engineers in the office here about the diversity initiatives and making sure we have a more diverse workplace, but I don't necessarily feel singled out in my role. It's not the worst, but it's not the best either.
So as in your current role, or just even broader than that, like what initiatives or like changes would you like to see to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion, either like at your company or in the industry at large? And actually, I'll leave it at that for now and maybe expand the question after we get some of your insight. What can we do to make things more inclusive, better?
I would say one thing I would love to see is, I know, a lot of larger companies speak a lot about like their DEI initiatives, but I would love if maybe, some of, that energy was kind of redirected to like students in like high school. Me personally, like I don't feel as though tech was really brought up as an option, and I was someone where my parents put us in. Like here, Emory's a big school. We went there for like the summer where they introduced us to different careers, but like nothing in tech was ever brought up. And kind of like to someone else's point, like for how well you can do and how great of a field it is, like, and having a low barrier of entry, like it would be nice if maybe we try to start some kind of initiative in like high schools and let students know that this is even an option, because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know that this is an option, you can't really blame high schoolers for not really pursuing it when, they never knew it was a possibility. But just my opinion.
That's a good point. Exposure is like, it's half the battle sometimes.
I agree with that pretty strongly, because I think at a certain age you get sort of put into a box, like you're either a STEM person or you're not a STEM person. And I felt very strongly felt that I was in more of the like artistic, or like in terms of education, like liberal arts side. Even though I had taken computer adjacent stuff in the past and like enjoyed it, I just didn't have the thought process of thinking that anything regarding computer science was something I was like even capable of. So like, yeah, it's probably like too like long term for companies to think about when they're talking about hiring, but like middle school, high school is where I think the interest could start.
Just to popcorn to that, I guess to add to that is that I think for me, my experience personally, I feel I have a different experience. Not really different experience, but like much more um peculiar experience than everyone else because, um coming from an African background and then, obviously I'm not in the States and you can't really apply to a lot of roles because they ask you for, all this kind of authorization to work and different kind of things. But mainly when it comes to I personally feel like these things should be addressed from a root and mentality cause because companies put it out there. Oh, at the bottom of the job application, you see that long italic paragraph that says, "Oh, our company focuses on DEI, blah 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 blah." And then you jump on an interview, and then the recruiter sees that you're a black person, and then the entire conversation just changes like entirely just because you're colored. So I think that having either C-suite executives or recruiters have that workshops like different things that the tech industry should also focus on because some of these companies just put it out there. They don't really like you could check the C-suite executive like they're all white. So it's like if you're focusing on DEI, like where's the diversity in your executive team? Like it's not really there. But then you want your employees to be diverse, but you don't want your executive team to be diverse. The employees can only be diverse if you have a diverse person on the executive team to be able to make decisions from a standpoint of the diversity, right? So I guess that's just what I have to say on that.
Yeah. Following up on what Victor said and like with dealing with the grassroots, I'm big on grassroots initiatives. I think we people as the sun, if you see me in your LinkedIn inbox, accept me. And then we should have a conversation. Even if it's 2 sentences, we need to make that connection. And that's what I try to do. I try to pass it forward, talk to each other. I think that's going to be the start of more and more diversity within these companies.
Those are some major points. Yeah, I'm definitely should win some award for like referrals that have placed in without landing anyone yet. But the person's coming. The person is coming. Who knows? It could be somebody here. But like definitely connect with other people and pay things forward. Anyone who goes through the program and comes out, it's really important to pay it forward to those who are trying to get in. And that's actually why we're here tonight. A group of accomplished Codesmith alumni just trying to pay for whatever experience they've got. So, in terms of your current roles, either where you're working at now or if you're not on your first job from outside of Codesmith, it could be a previous role. Any information that any of you care to share about like the current projects that you're working on and like the the challenges that you're experiencing day to day, and interesting parts of your role that you would like to highlight. I know that Sigele, you mentioned you're a bit have to be a bit reserved in this, so I'm not going to expect an answer from you. Or
But I can talk about the tech stack and stuff though. It's just
okay,
not about products because it's not really consumer facing.
Cool.
But yeah, so I had to like write it down because there's a lot. It's a company that has a lot of tech internally built tools and also a lot of tech debt to go with it, so that's fun. But our languages primarily are C#, Python, and Go. We use a lot of Kubernetes, Terraform, Jenkins, Ansible for like our CI/CD stuff and just for orchestration. I've had a hand in all of those things, and I didn't learn even a single little bit of it in the program. I just got in and they were like, "Hey, you need to migrate this C# app." I said, "Okay, here goes nothing." So I think it's easy to get comfortable, by the way, when you're job searching and you're like, "Okay, I need like JavaScript engineer roles." But like if you have the knowledge of how computer science logic works, you can learn other languages. It's not impossible. But yeah, that's what my tech stack is.
So for me, at my company, I'm majorly front end focused. So like, React, TypeScript, and some of the things that we're currently doing is like we build a lot of UI libraries for because what we do is that we're like I don't know what they call it, like is it adjunct? When you're like a team on top of an enterprise team, like you're just an additional team to help the enterprise team make their work easier, better, that like all that kind of stuff. So we just come in, our team comes in to the company as like an additional support, and then we build them tools for them to make their work easier. So most times we work on UI component libraries for their developers to be able to build, UIs faster, different things like React Native apps for, companies as well that want to put their platform on a mobile app, basically. So that tech stack is going anywhere from, React, TypeScript. Backend is usually like, NoSQL, MongoDB, and then Node. Basically, like Codesmith tech stack. And which is like, if I see some job applications and I'm seeing C# or like all those other languages, like I don't bother applying to those kind of jobs because like what am I gonna say in the interviews and that kind of thing. But like I've seen Codesmith graduates like apply to those jobs and get those jobs and like kill the interviews, even in the technical interview, like graduates to learn like a different language in like 2 days before the interview. So that's really, really like amazing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Jeffrey, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Ironically, I didn't learn C# in 2 days, but coincidentally, my current role is we code only in C#. So we use C#.net. In regards to learning it, like I don't know, maybe I was fortunate, but I actually didn't need to learn C# prior to this position. Neither did a couple of my other colleagues. However, our situation might have been a little bit different because with this particular endeavor, I mean, we started from scratch. Like we have like a 150-page handbook as like a guide. So we've kind of every day is kind of a challenge. Like everything we're doing is new. Sometimes it's kind of like an evolving process. So we'll implement one thing one way and then have to change it because we've had like database schema changes or recently business came back and changed their mind about something. So we have to like redo like a month's worth of work. So it just all depends. But I think one benefit of Codesmith is the OSP. Like when if you go through the program, you have your OSP, try to pick something and do things that you're not comfortable with. Because at this point, like I think I've just gotten so used to not knowing everything and not being fully comfortable. Like when I get my user stories and we have our 2-week sprints, like I'm just like, hey, I don't know everything. It's fine. I know I'm going to figure it out. And I will definitely say that's one one benefit and one thing I took from Codesmith's OSP portion of the program. Eaton, you have anything?
Well, for current projects and things that I've been working on and digging into, right now, recently, I've been digging into a lot about content delivery networks and caching. And then I seen someone had a question about how do you go about learning these new tech stacks? What I'd say is documentation. And kind of like what Sigele said, you got to read. Like if you're not reading and really trying and taking it in, you're going to miss out on some key points.
So I'm gonna stay here for a little bit. We've got a few questions, and you guys have brought up some interesting things. I'll go to Victor. Like, what do you like about front end particularly? Do you like front end? Do you like, is that like your preference? Why do you like it? What are the highlights of working on the front end in your mind? And then I'll follow that up with Sigele talking about more back end work.
Are you asking me that because you're a back-end engineer?
No, actually, I do a little bit of front end at my role as well. I want to display
I was just joking.
But yeah, tell us about it.
Okay, yeah. So, because I initially started out as a designer, the main reason why I got into tech was because why I got into like engineering actually was because, I would design websites and then I would have clients while I was a freelancer look for, okay, now that you've designed me this website, who's gonna build it? Like who's actually gonna build this website that you just designed? So that made me take up web design actually, which is like, you're using like WordPress, like things like Wix, Squarespace. And then I basically thought, okay, there should be a step further to this. Then I got into web apps and different things like that. But I just feel front end is more visual. And we're not gonna argue here which one is harder, whether front end or back end. But I'd say front end is more opinionated, whereby you just have a lot of tools. Like, back end, your database schema is always gonna be a database schema. You always set up your server like almost the same way. But with front end is like next month, Next.js is gonna come out with a new way to change a page to another page, that kind of thing. So yeah, I just feel like front end is more visual for me, and I can just easily like relate with what I'm seeing. When it comes to like back end, it's just like, yeah, like back end is back end. Like you can't really say much of back end, but back end is back end. So I think that's my main reason for liking front end, because I come from a design background and it's just more natural to me to, you know, like build what I design or see things from both perspectives. So yeah.
Sigele or anyone else actually who does back end, thoughts on like, what you like about back end and some things you want to highlight about it?
I think it's less to do with like liking the back end and more to do with being kind of allergic to front end. I'm just there's something about my brain where I'm like, I could apply styling, but like it looks fine, right? Who cares? I don't need a shadow on a button. But yeah, I think I'm just more like I like problem solving on a larger scale. I'm more analytical than like visually oriented. So I enjoy back end more. But to each their own. But going off of that, like my role is, or I was hired on as just software engineer, and then I was placed on a team. So I have a lot of learning to do. But the good thing is, especially with DevOps, is that a lot of it is just trying to make day-to-day development easier. Whether that's by automating things or building tools. It's very, very directly about solving developers' problems. So when you've already developed things and you know what the pain points are, it makes it a lot easier to build tools that make the job less painful.
Interesting. Okay, cool. There are some more other questions in the chat about technologies that we will come back to. I did want to say, circle back and talk about the job search and looking for roles post Codesmith. So most of you probably are aware here that it's been a tough job market recently in the tech industry overall, specifically engineering. What was each of your job searches like, and how did like the things that you learned in the immersive and like the immersive's hiring program help you find your roles? Anyone can answer this.
I'll start with this one. So when my cohort finished, I guess that was when they were initially talking about like how horrible the job market was. One thing I will say that helped me was kind of being a part of like a hiring group to keep like me accountable. And we actually joined with like another post grad hiring group, just so that we had like more people that we could kind of like share information with, pass on information from their interview. One thing that helped me out is just kind of being fully transparent. Like probably February and March, I was submitting 40, 50 applications. I think for like the first 60 days, like I didn't receive a single interview. And I know like Codesmith emphasized the importance of like networking. So I went on LinkedIn, just kind of reached out to several different recruiters, and just, was very humble and essentially was just like, hey, given today's, tech climate, like, do you have any advice? Would you be open to like having a coffee chat? And I was fortunate enough to get like a recruiter from Microsoft, recruiter from Google, as well as like another company. And they went through my resume, told me like how to revise it. And after that, like in all seriousness, I probably went from applying 7 hours a day to maybe about 90 minutes a day and was averaging 7 to 8 interviews every week with the advice that they shared. So like the importance of networking cannot be overstated, and having like that hiring group to support you, because the reality, you spending hours on job applications without getting a single interview, like naturally you're going to get like a little demoralized. So having like people, good people who genuinely want to see you do well. I will also say like just supporting each other. Like it was people in my OSP group were hired before me, and just kind of genuinely being excited, knowing that their interview coming up was going to require like CEO of a company walking through our OSP, volunteering to like help and genuinely be happy for them. And it, really came back on me. So like I would definitely say networking and supporting each other for sure.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Networking, networking, networking. Anyone else? How was your job search? How'd you make it through? What
Yeah,
got you hired?
I
Yeah.
can touch on that. Like Jeffrey said, networking, right? And he also made mention like he was applying 2 months straight, 50 applications a day, didn't get an interview, So I think one of the most important things is also like reaching out to alumni in the same situation that you're in. Like if you're in the same city, you're like the alumni has the same background as you, or whether it was an high school teacher, because you would share almost the same experience, right? And one thing is that personally, me, my job search experience, I was applying, I think 2 months before, just a month after I started Codesmith. So once we started our OSP, I started applying for jobs. I know they say, Codesmith will tell you not to apply for jobs until the end of the immersive, but because I had prior experience, like little prior experience, I had something to put in my CV, and then I just started testing that out. And then, I even almost got a job before I graduated. Guess what they said? Oh, because you're not in Canada, we can hire you. And then they made me go through the entire interview stage, knowing well that I wasn't in Canada. So yeah. I think in my job search experience, I would say numbers over quality a bit because of the current situation in the market, because there's a lot of competition right now. Like you're competing with like thousands and thousands of laid off people. So what are the chances that you're gonna see your resume? Like you need to really think of that. And for me, I really focused on because I got a job just a month after graduating. So I made sure not to apply to big companies. I just wanted to get a job first. So it really depends on what your goal is. So I was targeting, small companies with a size like 20 to 50, employees, and then they had lesser, job application. Like who's gonna like apply, like 20,000 people are not gonna apply to, a job that has like 20 headcounts and then like lives in a small town in like a small area, like that kind of thing. So I really focused on companies like that. And because I wasn't based in the US, that also limited the amount of applications I could like submit every day. So it was really hard, like trying to get those applications in and trying to get all those numbers in. So yeah, I guess Codesmith that application also worked for me for jobs that I really liked. I would email, the recruiter personally or the hiring manager and co-person and be like, hey, I just applied for this role. Are you available for a 5-minute chat to, dive into the, role and tell me more about the company? And some people are gonna reply you and some people are just gonna forward your resume to who's gonna actually interview you or who's gonna actually give you the job. So I think that worked for me the most. Emailing people personally, like if you're just submitting a CV and a cover letter, like you're one out of 20,000 people or one out of 3,000 people that applied. So what's gonna make you stand out? Like just send that email, even if they're not gonna look at it. So I usually send the email to the CEO, the CTO, hiring manager, and then the recruiter. And I only did this for jobs that I really wanted, like not all jobs. Like if I really wanted it, I email like 4 people in the same company, and one is gonna see it and one is gonna reply. So that's how I got my job.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that's that tenacity. Up all night, learning from Russia and applying to the entire executive board. That'll do it. Eden, um, did you deal with imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you handle it?
So I dealt with imposter syndrome yesterday. Imposter syndrome doesn't go away, I think. I think it's the ugly little monster that always tries to creep up, and you have to constantly fight it. Especially in this industry where you have to constantly learn to stay ahead of the curve. And as technology grows and changes and in its different various forms. But yeah, to deal with imposter syndrome, I think it takes community and having a place like Codesmith, being able to reach out to your cohort or reach out to another alumni, that really helps remove that imposter syndrome monster for the moment. Even if it comes back again, at least you have someone in your corner that you can go talk to again and be like, hey, I'm feeling down about this topic. And then they'll just remind you, it's like, yeah, me too. We all are. How we're all learning, which is really cool.
Cool. Jeffrey, in terms of learning technologies that you or applying to jobs that had technologies that you didn't learn at Codesmith, what thoughts do you have about like whether somebody should consider a role that they don't know the technology for and how they should approach it if they really do want that role? I know you have an answer in the chat. I just wanted you to rehash that and maybe add a little bit extra that you couldn't put there.
No, absolutely. I mean, I definitely wouldn't shy away from languages other than what's taught in Codesmith. As I said, like my current role, several of us hadn't coded in C#. On my interview panel, the lead engineer, the cloud architect, I mean, prior to them taking positions at Humana, they never, used several languages. So that was less of an issue. I would say like for other roles, for instance, I applied to one where for this particular role, they were using Nest.js and GraphQL. So prior to that interview, I made like a basic API. I also implemented like some Redis caching just because I saw that in the job description. So I did that maybe over like 2 to 3 days just so that I would have something to talk about during that interview. And ironically, even though I didn't get that job, speaking about that experience using Nest, using GraphQL, since that was something that they were looking to implement, with my role in Humana, that ultimately led me to get, the job I have now. So big thing, there's plenty of resources out there. Reading is good. For me, the thing that helped the most, even when I was learning C# for this particular position, was actually building something. Like, for me at least, like, I can read it all day, but I need to like break it. I need to see how it works in like a safe environment. So that's been like by far the most helpful. That helped me and, searching for jobs, because then, you don't have to like fake discussing something. You've actually like done it. Like, I've already done I've already used GraphQL. I've used Redis. It's like, I'm not just speaking about what I think it'll do. I'm speaking about what I made it do. And then, as I said, that led me to, that actually impressed them with Humana and led them to hire me. And honestly, I've not had any issues acclimating to C# with what we're developing. Like, so it's definitely doable. I would just say, don't doubt yourself. You're capable of learning. And definitely, like, don't shy away from jobs other than what's taught in Codesmith, or jobs whose use languages other than what's taught in Codesmith. You can do it, I assure you.
Cool. Excellent. Can I get one person to talk about how you stayed motivated during the program, and like how you pushed yourself through difficult weeks? Anyone other than Sigele? Sorry, not that I don't want your
I
opinion.
know, I'm so noisy.
Well, you already answered in the chat. So anyone else, any tips on like getting through the really tough program that is Codesmith?
Yeah, I could say one or two about that. I mean, I think even before getting to that, if you haven't started Codesmith yet, thinking, you're gonna take 6 months off, really get your JavaScript together, you're gonna study every day, then take the interview, then get into Codesmith. Like, if you're procrastinating just because you feel you're not good enough to join Codesmith, like, just join, to be honest. Like, don't wait for that perfect moment you feel it's like you know everything about JavaScript, and then you can like loop an array and do some crazy shit with that. Nah, don't wait for that. Like, just go in. So to speak on that, I think number one motivation is to have, aside from your cohort mates, is to have the right people around you where you live, because that's the most important thing. If you're married, if you have siblings, if you have, brothers, or like, just a significant partner, like, let them know how Codesmith really means to you and how they can support you during that time. Because I feel that would be like the number one motivation to keep going. And then just personally, like, look at yourself in the next 5 years and just imagine yourself being that person, and then just break down the work that you need to put in to be that person in the next 5 years, which is literally what Codesmith is gonna do for you. So just put in the work, and you're gonna be at the top, basically.
Yeah, I totally agree with a lot of what Victor said. Additionally, I think my greatest advice I can give is having some core values and a good quote or two. I think it really boils down to having a strong mindset. I promise you, there's not much you can't solve after a good night's rest, or at least some time. Things will come to you. You just have to let it come. And once you understand that it will come, you never have to worry. You can know that there will be a better day tomorrow. And as far as the core values that I had during that time, it was perseverance, consistency, and persistence. And just having that in my mind, knowing that I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to continue. I'm not going to stop. That led me down my path. And then one of my favorite quotes, lazy men work twice. That was big for me. That way, whenever I did something, I did it the best that I could in that first moment. So I never had any regrets.
Cool. So we have a couple of final thoughts. And then I'm just going to leave a little more time at the end for other questions that people have. Any resources or communities that you all think or that have been pivotal for all of your growth that you would recommend to the people here in this room?
Two that come to mind. Two are coming to mind. One is Black Brilliant Minds. I think that's a phenomenal resource. They actually give you free interview prep, which I think is monumental. So you can go and have an interview one-on-one with someone. Amazing, beautiful. And I think the second resource was the Afrotech conference. It was cool networking with other people that looked like me. That was really big in building my network. That way I had more people to lean on.
All right. And any advice that you give yourself, like before you started Codesmith, or you know, somebody like you who's in that position now?
Advice I would give to myself and anyone else. I mean, the program is hard. It will definitely challenge you. I think for me, I struggled more so because I was trying to like be perfect. And I think like once I got, you know, kind of like I put in the chat, like once I got to a point where I was focusing more on like just making progress instead of trying to be perfect. And, you know, it really changed my whole experience. And I mean, kind of even like on a job, like in terms of learning like a new language, like, you know, you absolutely can do it. Um, Reach out when need be. As I said at the start of this panel, like Eaton helped me more in like those 30 minutes than he'll probably ever realize. So just kind of like having a strong support and, you know, just know that you can do this. Like I assure you, many people have gone through Codesmith, many people that you look up to and you're like, I'll never get to that point. They struggled at one point. Like every expert once, you know, began somewhere. So just I assure you it's tough. You can do it. And just, you know, just make sure you have the right mindset, but and reach out to, you know, alumni if need be, because I know I for one would love to tell you how badly I've struggled and how much I'm thriving in my current role. So if you get at a low point, message me, I'll share my number and I'll be more than happy to like encourage you and, as Eaton said, pass it on.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we are pretty much at the end of our time. However, we do have a few extra minutes for anybody who's able to stay. Obviously, you know, you don't have to. There was an important question I think that was asked in the chat that I'll rephrase a bit. It was just about compensation, but for anyone who wants to share general like expectations based off of what you've seen in the industry. I'm not gonna say, you know, share your whole comp package and put your W-2s to the screen, but like any for transparency's sake, what can people expect? What have you seen in the markets in terms of like comp ranges, and what can people guide themselves towards?
I'll talk about it a little bit. So the first thing is it can vary a lot depending on where you're at geographically or if you're looking at like a remote role. Like for example, I'm in Texas. My salary is like it's if you look at like Codesmith outcomes, the median is like 127, something like that. Like, you know, mid 100,000. My salary is a little bit lower than that, but also I'm in a place with a slightly lower cost of living than say a San Francisco or a New York. So it balances out when you look at it on that scale. That being said, most of the jobs that I looked at were in that range. And it's also a question of sort of like what roles are you shooting for? Sometimes back end pays a lot more. Sometimes back end pays a lot less, depending on the needs of the company. And then of course, you know, there's some roles that are, you know, more closer to not-for-profit, which of course is a completely different thing. So I would say that for the roles I was looking at, the salaries were about in line with what the median salaries for Codesmith grads are, down to, you know, 10K or so less.
I don't think anything will ever be enough until I'm not working anymore. But nonetheless, what I will say is that you can go to levels.fyi to find out more information about tech salaries. It gives you a really good idea. But what I will say is that along with compensation, you got to think about all those little perks that you also get. I think about this Christmas, they gave me a whole bunch of different gifts. They gave me like this teak board that is way too big for my Brooklyn apartment. But hey, I got it. It's cool. But what I will say is that, yeah, or for example, 6% match on my 401k. Don't have plans on retiring anytime soon. So give me the extra money. So yeah, it's nice on the other side. So I think that's a way to tell you, don't stop, keep going. You'll be happy afterwards.
Just to also touch on, the old compensation, like salary thing. Like, one advice I would give is don't get too stuck on, the Codesmith average, 127, blah, 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 blah. Like, don't get too stuck on that. If your previous salary was 45K and straight out of Codesmith you see a job for 75K, please take it. Like, I'm giving you like financial advice right now. Like, just take it. Why? Because the job market right now is so unpredictable. And just because of that, knowledge of, median salary is XYZ, you don't want to forfeit something that will put food on your table for the next, let's say, 3 months. You can always change jobs. You don't even need to put a job on your LinkedIn. You can still act like you're still even searching for a role while you're actively in a role, and then you can probably still use your OSP and then just use that to keep on applying for roles until you find a better role. But don't get too stuck on, as long as you're not coming from like, your previous salary is like 100K and then you have an engineering job offering you like 65K. Obviously you can't do that. But it's like, don't get too stuck on the median salary. If you feel something is good enough for you for momentarily, like for the next 6 months, just take it and then try and look for something better. Just try and look for something better. And for me, it's like, I couldn't really focus on that, like trying to get those 130. I did have interviews for those, 150, 130K role, but obviously they wouldn't hire someone that wasn't based in the United States. And, they have to do all the paperwork and all the. So it's like I was targeting startups that were fully remote, and then they have a, remote team. You just check their LinkedIn and then you see someone in like Poland. Obviously, that startup is gonna hire you because they're hiring, everywhere. So just to wrap it up, yeah, don't get too stuck on like the media and stuff. Like it's good, but it's like, yeah, if you find something, take it, work for more. So that's good.
Okay, Jeffrey.
I guess real quick to just add to that. So like I actually have a friend that's been like a senior dev at Google for like a decade and another that's like a staff at Meta. And like one thing they told me, like I was fortunate, my current role, I'm a little bit over the Codesmith average. There were other positions I turned down, but one thing they told me is like when you're starting out, if you have a choice, always try to choose the best learning opportunity because in the long run, that's going to like benefit you the most. Like that's what one of them did. And he was like, even though, his first 18 months, he didn't make as much as he could have because it was a better learning opportunity. It wound up paying dividends. And, obviously when you're senior staff at a FANG, I mean, it's like double the Codesmith average. So, kind of like to Eden's point, like it's not always just about, the salary. There's also like other things, the office versus hybrid versus remote benefits, learning opportunities, like what's going to benefit your future self the most. So that it's, you have to kind of still look at like everything. So just one point I wanted to kind of make.
All right. So we're pushing up on the end of time here. I do want to give space for one, maybe two more questions. But I'm going to give priority to whoever unmutes their mic and asks the question verbally. So any of our participants or any of our listeners can jump in with a question if you'd like right now.
Hi,
Yes.
everyone. So, what are you all doing now to, I guess, advance your knowledge outside of the on-the-job learning? Like, are there, I guess, self-paced courses that you all are doing to continue your education?
What I'll say, so one thing is my job, they offer trainings to us. They're not mandatory, but you can sign up for things. So I can do some additional learning through work. There is not a paid ad, but there's a website called Educative that has a lot of courses, and they're all very thorough and very long. It's just a lot of material. One thing I'll also say though is a lot of my learning was like, for a take home, it's like, okay, I have to build a Python app. So I just go on YouTube and search how simple Python app tutorial and just start there, because in the process of making it what it needs to be, it's more about learning how to like research than like actually studying. It's more like, yeah, learning how to ask the right questions basically. But yeah, Educative and YouTube honestly are the ones I relied on the most.
I told y'all that I like quotes. I think a leak code a day keeps unemployment away. So I try my best to always keep up with that. And then my job actually gives us front-end master's course, and you actually get that at the end of Codesmith. It's a really great learning opportunity. You get to see how different devs from different companies go about various different technologies.
Yeah, just to top on that, I think one advice I would give to anybody learning anything new is don't spend more than 12 or 10 hours on a course. You see all those Udemy courses, 20, 60 hours, don't do that. You're never gonna finish it unless you're like, super, super disciplined. You're like the Mark Zuckerberg of your time or something. Like I never finished all those. So what I would advise is like YouTube, to be honest. And then Code with Marsh also. He's a very great guy on YouTube. So the guy just does like probably 6 hours, tutorial on React, and then you just go build your own project. Like you would learn faster building a project than, watching a 60-hour, Udemy course. And I think that's one thing that Codesmith also prioritized in terms of, spend 6 hours, 12 hours learning React, and then you build was it a tic-tac-toe? Yeah, I think it was a tic-tac. I think it was a tic-tac-toe. So yeah, you just spend like 6 hours learning React, and then you're building a tic-tac-toe game. So spend as much time learning and spend as much time actually building something, because that's the real way that you're gonna learn. Like you can learn JavaScript for a year, and then the next year, if you don't build anything, like you're not gonna remember shit. Like code flies away. I probably don't remember how to start a project from scratch right now because I'm working at a company, and then every project has been you're just building on an existing project. So if I want to start a React app right now, I need to Google how do you start a React app like right now, because obviously front end changes a lot. So spend as much time building rather than, watching videos and then trying to implement what the video is saying, basically.
Samantha, how much time we got? I actually cannot remember.
I mean, we technically have time for like one more question if anyone also wants to unmute or raise their hand. Go for it.
Okay. Other than mock interviews and pair programming, are there any other resources that would, or actually two questions, sorry. Are there any other resources that would help you, like prepare well for the interview? And the second one, it kind of just slipped my mind. Oh yeah, would you recommend, like, is there any sort of thing you can do before getting into the program to prepare you for the program? Or is the program designed to like make you feel like you're drowning, as I've been told by many instructors, where they just tell you to lean, if you're drowning, just lean in and just drown until one day you're not drowning anymore. So that, I guess that was two questions, and that would be the last of that. Thank you.
The one the last one you said about, is this course designed to make you feel like you're drowning? I'm the sort of person who likes to over prepare for things. And my over preparation did not help me even like a tiny little bit. So don't like just start. Don't try and like study ahead of time because it's all going to go out of your head immediately. At least that was my experience.
I think the best bet is for you to learn yourself as much as possible. So if you know how you learn, if you know if you're in the mornings, you do really well. At night, you're a little tired. I think that'll serve you more than trying to prepare before the program. Because there's a lot of things you don't know that you don't know. So just take some rest. That's what I would say before the actual program. That might be the best thing that you can do.
100%. I totally like don't try to study up and be, like James Bond when you go into the like immersive and try and kill everyone with how smart you were because you finished the whole syllabus before joining. Nah, that's not gonna happen. You're probably gonna forget. So like rest up. And
I was
then
planning to do that actually.
I don't like nah, don't I did that and then it really didn't help me much. Like just like she said. But I think you're preparing for the interview, right? I think your first question was like how to prepare for like when is your interview coming up or when do you plan?
I haven't scheduled it yet. I got like I needed some time between my interviews because I got really sick and then I just had to take care of my health. So I was prioritizing that. But I do feel like I'm very ready for the next one. So
Okay,
but I haven't scheduled it, so yeah.
yeah, I'd say schedule it tonight if you can, because there's no point in waiting. Like if you say you're ready, you're ready. And I'll think one thing I would just say is what really helped me in my interview is there was a guy in the CSX. He was pretty smart. And me and this guy we did, I think, probably 6 hours in total of pair programming, like 2 days before my interview. And I can assure you, like the 6 hours overshined the entire 1 month that I used to prepare for the interview. Because the best way to learn I feel is to learn from someone that has done it before. So if you have someone in your, CSX study group or whatever that you see the person is really smart, like just, Slack the person and be like, do you have like an hour to like give me a mock interview or like, to go through these questions because they will really show you ways to solve problems that you wouldn't think of. And that's one thing. To pass Codesmith interview, you just need to solve problems like fast and communicate clearly because they expect you to solve like maybe 5 to 8 questions in like an hour, like algorithms are like an hour. So you just need to be fast. So the person would really show you like, corners you can do to solve this kind of questions if you've seen it before and whatnot. So that's what I would say for the interview.
This might be a conflict of interest because I also do technical interviews for Codesmith. But I will say, one thing that I see people struggle with, and this is not even just in interviewing people, is you need to make sure that the person you're pairing with knows what you're thinking, even if you're confused or lost. Because the alternative is that you're sitting there in silence staring at the screen. And so it's like they don't know. It's like, are you not engaged? Are they re-rating it again? Are they figuring it out in their head and I just don't know? Do they have like a secret laptop behind their other laptop that they're using to look up the answer? Just get used to talking, which to Victor's point, it becomes a lot easier when you practice doing it with another person. Someone who can sit there and be like, okay, what do you want to do next? What should we try? What do you think is going wrong? Because talking through your thought process is the only way for us to know that you're good at solving problems, aside from you solving the problem.
And kind of just to add on to that, one thing I did that at least helped me was me and essentially my neighbor's best friend kind of prepped for the interview together. Like we actually just kind of recorded each other, just to kind of like so we could see for ourselves like how we were doing in regards to technical communication. And I will say, even in terms of like actually applying to jobs where we have to, do lead code, like how Codesmith wants you to technically communicate and, kind of explain your thought process is very comparable to like what you'll go through in the real job market. So like if, your pair programming partner is okay with it, maybe see if they're okay like with y'all recording each other so you can see like, for me, for instance, there were times where like it was a long, uncomfortable pause and I wouldn't have known it unless like I went back and looked at the video and I myself was like, wow, and kind of resolving those type of issues before Codesmith program really did wind up helping me in the job search, like later on when I started doing actual job interviews. So, if your pair programming partner is okay with it, or if you have a friend, maybe record yourself so you can like see firsthand like how you do in regards to communication.
Thank you.
Cool. I actually have a quick tip on that last point. So back when I was studying for Codesmith, I did my first interview, bombed it, just crashed and burned. And then I made this like list of steps that I should take in solving the problem, and just like kind of kept it there on my desk. And I've used it all the way up until like today. Um, and like when I went on my real job hunt, I did this at all my companies. And like now when I interview people at Square, I check to see if like they're doing these things. And it's a simple list. It's just like read the problem if there is one, write the inputs and outputs, like pause, repeat the problem if you haven't, and like solve and all that stuff, because never underestimate what pressure and being under a time crunch will do to like destroy any thought process you have. You'll forget your name in that moment, forget how to type, forget English. It all go out the window. And so having like that something to anchor you could be like, if you're that type of person like me, could be a big help in that moment. So that's my advice that I would leave you out on. We have reached the end of our time and then some. This has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you all of our panelists here for sharing your experience and like, giving all this info and the wealth of info. Thank you all for attending our Black History Month alumni event. I hope that you guys all found this helpful.